Hello there. It is July 16th, 2017. It's 150 degrees outside, and I'm sweating my balls off. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube, and wherever else this video may land. My name is Brian Needleman, and I have something to say about supporting equality and respect for LGBT folks everywhere. In so many short minutes, I'm going to read an upgraded as well as an updated mini manifesto that I wrote back in 2013, which is titled Brian Needleman Supports Same-Sex Marriage and Human Rights. This 2017 version is titled Brian Needleman Supports Equality and Respect for LGBT folks everywhere. This video is going to be broken up into 4 shorter videos. Now, when I mean shorter, this is Brian Needleman's version of shorter, so it has a different connotation than what most people think shorter is. Because this mini manifesto, or this revised manifesto, is about 20.5 pages. But I assure you, please don't equate the length to boredom here. I put a lot of energy into this. I put the best and the worst of me into it, and I'm very passionate about what I wrote and how I wrote it. So maybe a little bit longer, so you break it up in chunks. But I'm hoping that you'll get something out of it. And I'm hoping that if you get something out of it, that you'll want to share this with your peeps or other people. Maybe you'll share the paper that I wrote, as well as the links to the videos as well. And again, if for some reason you can't see the videos, just put my name in on YouTube and it should come up there. Spelling of my name is Brian, B-R-I-A-N. Last name is spelled Needleman. That is N as in Nancy, E-E-D-L-E-M-A-N. Period. So for me, this 2017 2.0 version reflects changes in the political climate from 2013 to 2017. In 2013, President Obama and Vice President Biden were advocates of same-sex marriage, tolerance, and equal rights for LGBT folks. On July 27th, 2015, LGBT folks were granted the right by the United States Supreme Court to be able to legally marry in all 50 states. But this triumphant ruling did not bring an end to the racism and bigotry against gays and those who identify as transgender. In 2017, we got a different political climate here. President Trump, and especially Vice President Pence, do not exactly advocate for the acceptance and tolerance of LGBT folks, and they're deserving of equal rights. And believe me, I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I won't. I'll expand on that point a little bit later. But before I talk about the impetus behind me revising and updating this mini manifesto and making it into a 4-part video, I thought I might provide a little background that got me started on this journey. Excuse me, I'm taking a little gratuitous sip of water. Ah, much better. Over 25 years ago, when I was just getting into this racket, give or take, I was a graduate school working on my master's degree in clinical psychology, and still in graduate school. And I went to see a play in the Castro District in San Francisco, which the Castro District is a predominantly gay-populated neighborhood. And this play that I was going to see, a lion's share of the proceeds for this play was going to be donated to some nonprofit charity or resource supporting LGBT folks in one capacity or another. So don't ask me the name of the play, the theater of where it was held, or what exactly the charity was. My memory, I have issues with long-term memory, sometimes short-term memory. So I don't remember. Maybe I'm just not as young as I used to be. Anyhow, the gentleman who was seated to my right, which I had interpreted when he spoke to me in a very cautious tone and relatively unwelcomed whiff. He had said, "What's a straight guy like you doing in a gay venue like this?" And I responded something like, "Excuse me. I wasn't aware that I had to be gay to appreciate live theater and support a deserving cause within the LGBT community." And with a guilty look and an apologetic tone, he had responded, "No, you don't. And your support is very much appreciated. But please accept my apology. And also, please accept my apology. I've got this little acid reflux that's coming up from time to time. Didn't take my omeprazole this morning, so if you hear me belch a little bit, it's not because I have bad manners. It's the acid reflux, and I'm doing the best I can here. So I apologize if you hear me go a little burping coming up. It's not because I have bad manners necessarily. It's because of the acid reflux. Anyhow, this gentleman and I, we had shook hands, and we spent some time talking before the show. And it was one of those times that I learned that when you mention that you're a psychotherapist or a psychotherapist in training, that you tend to get people's life story. That's why now when people ask me what I do, I tell them that I'm an auditor for the IRS. And that usually shuts people up in about 5 seconds on a slow day, and then they run for the hills. I may not make as many friends that way, but I also don't get their life story. Anywho, so in this particular conversation, he had told me about how he had been the victim of discrimination because he was gay. He had told me about being the victim of a hate crimes. And he also told me that we got to be a little careful here in the LGBT community when straight people come into their midst because of the hate crimes and whatnot. So that was sort of explaining what was behind his sort of initial, what I would call hostile, mini-hostile tone there. But what was relevant about this conversation, many things, but one of the things was, it was the first time that I started to see him not just as a gay person, but as a human being that was really suffering. He was being discriminated against. He had been the victims of hate crimes. He had also been the victim of conversion therapy, which I'll get into later. And he had explained that he came out to his parents as a teenager and they forced him into conversion therapy. And he had subsequently suffered PTSD, depression, and had suicided twice. And I really started to get a feel during this conversation that, you know, something isn't right here. I don't understand it. Why do gay people have to go through this shit? Undeserving. Just because I like women, sexually attracted to women, and because he's sexually attracted to men, he's got to deal with all this crap. It just didn't seem right. So at the end of the conversation, I guess when he felt comfortable enough, I had said to him, I said, "How did you know I wasn't gay? You know, I'm not dressed any differently than anybody else here. It's a cold San Francisco summer night. You know, Mark Twain had made that joke, the coldest winter that he ever spent was the summer in San Francisco." And he said, it's a gaydar thing. And he explained to me what gaydar is all about. I never heard that term before. And he said it's just something that when you're gay, it's something innate that we know, that we can know if someone else is gay or not. And he said he took a look at me and the gaydar thing didn't go off or register on the meter or whatever it does. So over the next 25 years, I worked with a lot of LGBT folks. What I do for a living, I'm a licensed marriage family therapist in the state of California. And I worked with a number of gays and those who identify as transgender. But this piece alone doesn't reveal what is the real impetus behind my passion for supporting and advocating for LGBT folks and their human rights. And a little bit I'm going to be explaining what these initials are all about and whatnot. Sometimes when I say the word, I get a little tongue-tied. LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. There was one former patient that I worked with for many years. He was gay. And again, we worked together for a number of years before he died. He was a terrific human being. And if we weren't patient and therapist, I would have been honored to have been called his friend. For confidentiality purposes, even in death, I can't disclose his name or the specific issues for his counseling. So I'm going to just call him Mensch. And what Mensch is a Yiddish word that is cognate in the German language, meaning an honorable person with integrity. Mensch is the perfect word to describe my former patient. And there's not a day that doesn't go by when I don't think about him, miss him, and his loss. It was devastating to me. And there are sometimes I can talk about it and feel kind of detached, and there are other times that it hits me like it's the first time. So I'm going to muster through here, so if I seem a little verklempt, hang with me. The last time I saw him in session, he had asked me to promise him if I would do something for him, if something were to happen to him. Now, whenever anybody asks me to promise something, I first tell them, well, what do you want me to promise? And then I'll give you my answer whether or not I'll honor that. He had thanked me for helping him through some very difficult times that he went through, and for my constant advocacy of him and other LGBT folks over the years. He told me that my efforts really made a difference. My response is, well, that's what I'm getting paid to do. And his response was, no, you don't get paid to care. You just get paid for your services, but the caring, that's something that you never charged for. He asked me to never stop working with LGBT folks and advocating for them in whatever manner I can. He told me that LGBT folks can never have enough straight folks advocating for them. On one level, I was profoundly touched and advised him that it would be my honor to honor his request of me. At the same time, I told him that you are scaring me and telling me that you're either going to die by some disease or plan to die by suicide. Now, we use the term here, die by suicide, as opposed to committed suicide. My friend and colleague, Emily Duval, who's a licensed psychotherapist like me, and she's a suicide specialist there, and she advised me that when we say committing suicide, that's referencing committing suicide as being a crime. When someone dies by suicide, it's for whatever purposes, it just means it was their choice to die. And it takes the criminality part out of it. And of course, I, thoroughly assessed him for suicidality, to which Mensch emphatically denied to no end. I assessed the time, the plan, the means, and specifically, what is your intention? Are you going to leave my office and kill yourself? Yeah, and he emphatically denied all that, and he denied it to no end. I spoke with him briefly over the next couple of days as kind of a daily check-in to make sure that he was okay. And each time he again emphatically denied that he was at risk for any self-harm. Mensch never showed up for our next scheduled session. Which in all the years that I worked with him, never happened. He always returned my phone calls. This time he didn't return my calls at all over the next couple days. And something hit me in the pit of my stomach, and I knew that he was dead. I had called the police and convinced them with my fast and convincing tongue that they need to do a welfare check on him. And they did, and they found him dead in his home. Again, there are some times that I can talk about that from a detached position, and there are other times it's hitting me like it's the first time. So Mensch is the impetus behind my being an advocate for LGBT folks. So this mini manifesto here and 4-part video now is dedicated to you, Mensch. Wherever you are, I have no doubt that you were in the finest place that only someone who is a true Mensch goes. And like Gilda Radner would say, you don't have to be Jewish to wear Jewish jeans, but it couldn't hurt. Well, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Mensch. And you are the ultimate, the epitome of Mensches. There isn't a day that doesn't go by when I don't think of you and the richness that you brought to my life. Ironically, your death clarified one of my life's purposes, which is to not keep my big mouth quiet, but to speak up and not enable racism, bigotry, and hatred, but to encourage and advocate for equality, tolerance, acceptance, and love. So this is the end of my introduction, the end of part 1 of my video. Brian Needleman supports equality and respect for LGBT folks everywhere. The next video will actually be me beginning reading my mini manifesto.